another episode of Trauma to Triumph. My name is Lynn Lee, and today's topic is something that I'm passionate to talk about, and that is emotions. Emotions is a driving force for our behaviors and connection with ourselves and others, but we don't quite know much about them, especially the unpleasant emotions that we consistently feel, and for most, on a daily basis to the point that they are out of control. Our goal today is to shine some light to your emotions. Our speaker today is Rebecca Shaw. She's a hypnotherapist. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here and to speak with you and to share with everyone that watches this show.
Share with us, how did you get into this work?
I was actually living at the beach, had a great job. My life was on the surface perfect, but I was still having these bouts of sadness. So I decided to try hypnotherapy, and in just a few sessions, probably about 4 or 5 sessions, it so radically cleared my depression after I was actually told by the head of psychiatry at my university that it was biological and that I was stuck with this sadness. I would have to take medication. So when I cleared it, I was like, oh my gosh, I quit engineering. I'm like, I want to do this for other people that feel stuck. Back in the 40s and the 50s, there became this very powerful emphasis on physical fitness. Exercise just needs to be a part of your everyday life. And we all, I think our country embraced that. Now, the next evolution, I think, is emotional fitness. Because as children, we're not taught to deal with stress. And academic stress, test taking for children has been dropping down to lower and lower grades, like even as young as like 2nd or 3rd grade, or having stress about school. And then now with COVID and kids being worried about getting sick or being isolated, and then they see how their parents don't cope or cope with the stress of everything going on. If they see their parents smoking or drinking, that's what they're teaching their kids, how to cope with stressful emotions. So what I'm really passionate about is teaching kids who come to my office, but more so teaching parents and women, we're typically on the cutting edge when it comes to anything that's related to relationships. So teaching women how to have a healthier relationship with their emotions, as I call it, which means you don't suppress it with food, alcohol, or drugs. You don't beat yourself up for being sensitive. And you really learn that your emotions, whether they feel good or not so good, are a very, very vital energy inside of you that can be used to heal. How do good relationships get forged between two people? They get forged because you talk openly, you feel comfortable to say anything. And so you've got to really have that same relationship with your emotions. Like if it feels bad, it doesn't necessarily mean it is bad. So if anxiety comes up, you don't want to let it just keep spin cycling. I just watched something the other night about brain mapping, and it said that, and I've known this all along because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imaginary, but to actually see it on a brain map that every time you're worrying about something, it's literally putting your brain into this altered state and cutting off electricity to your brain. So the faster you can learn how to break the cycle of anxiety and have a healthy relationship, it doesn't mean anxiety never goes away, but you don't spin cycle in it and you don't try to just suppress it, because if you suppress it, it's still in there.
The way we feel anxious or depressed because of our emotions over time. Now, AI or a robot trying to become more human, right? But our humans tend to lose our capability over time. We become more robot in a way because we trying to suppress our emotions, like you just mentioned, or beat ourselves with negative emotions, or suppress emotion to numb ourselves to avoid feeling pain, correct?
Yeah.
And depression or anxiety is the bypass of that. So the key thing is to how to have a better relationship with our unpleasant or negative emotion.
Yes, absolutely. You brought up a good point. So to me, depression is when we just want to tune out and not feel anymore because it's just too much. We want to, typically extreme depression is just wanting to sleep, not wanting to feel because it just feels so heavy. And then anxiety is just the fight or flight stories in your mind going, never stop. And so when we're children, trauma, the whole series is called, Trauma to Triumph. trauma to a child, it can be something that you would never, as an adult or a parent, guess. So I was working with a man who had very bad ADD, a doctor. We actually did hypnosis and tracked his ADD, actually ADHD as well, hyperactive, back to a story when he was his first day of school. His mom drove him to kindergarten in the car. It was pouring down rain. She opened the door and she just kind of pushed him out and said, "Have fun, kid." He was terrified and he was just like, and it was so scary for him. So when something like that happens, it can literally put your brain into this little like low level fight or flight for years or for life, because it was traumatic to him. Now you could take a different child and push them out, do the same thing. And that kid's like, "Yahoo, see ya, mom," And so trauma isn't always something horrible that happened. It's our perception of it. But when we're children, we learn to suppress things. So like in my family, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, it's like it was better to, well, my mom would say, "I'll give you something to cry about. Don't cry. I'll give you something to cry about." So, okay, I'm not going to cry because I just get in more trouble, right? So I learned that it was better to not cry or to not feel or to not feel sad or to not miss something. So I would disown the emotions, like just, I don't need anything. I don't want anything. So it's like our childhood things. And then some things are just more clear, like clearly trauma for people. And the best way they know how to cope is to just stick it in the back of the closet of their mind. But then the problem is it typically will surface at some point as a modern day problem. Flying, fear of flying, driving, interesting anxieties, they seem to come up out of the blue, but they'll track back to childhood trauma. So it's kind of different, depends on if you are aware of the memory and you know it still bothers you, then I would highly recommend doing something like EMDR or hypnosis, something that will help you to clear the emotional charge and the wounding from childhood, because you can talk about it all day, but it won't necessarily change the emotion, clear you. It might change, oh, my parents didn't mean it, they were stressed or whatever. But on the emotional level, that first session I had for hypnosis, I sobbed like I was this 9-year-old, the 9-year-old little girl. And I was like, wow, where did that come from? And like I had the memory, but I didn't remember all the emotion. And then I realized that traumatic memories will just the emotion gets suppressed. So you need a modality that will help you to clear that. So that would be, if you have old stuff that you need clearing. On a day-to-day basis, if I'm going to go for some surgery and I'm anxious about it and I just keep pushing it like this, that's not necessarily healthy either. So it's really good to learn to, when I say healthy relationship with your emotions, okay, so I'm going to sit with this anxiety today, like it's a friend. It's not here to torture me. It's not here to make me weak. What is it about? What story is behind that anxiety? And then once I know what the story is it true? Is it working for me? Is it an old story that I need to heal? Is it intuition telling me to beware? So the emotion is the energy in your body. I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel scared. I feel anxious. But behind the energy was created from a story. So when you can really tap in and have a method, a process to understand what those stories are, maybe through, you've done meditation or again, hypnosis, when you can understand what those stories are, that's when your real power comes, because you can say, that story is not working for me now. Like for me, it was, I was having surgery on my elbow and the anxiety kept coming up. And when I let the story in, it was memories of being 6-year-old and 9-year-old at a hospital in New Jersey. And they didn't let parents spend the night and the kids were screaming and I was terrified, So it was like, oh, and then I was like, oh, that's where this come from. That's where that comes from. Okay. I don't need to worry about that. Things are different now, but we get these emotions that are just locked in the body like artifacts, like little pieces, like old reruns playing. And if we can find out what they're about, we can heal them, clear them, change them, upgrade them. And that's when you can really understand your emotions aren't here to sabotage you. If you have a good relationship with them, they will bring you so much insight and wisdom. And then when you clear that, oh my gosh, you'll just have so much more energy because you're not suppressing.
Okay, so what you're saying is that Emotions is energy that formed over time. We don't consciously understand or know, but we feel within us in the energy field that our intellect does not know. So what we need to do is go into the subconscious mind or seek out experts who are in the mind body field to bring you to a different state, which is the subconscious, and your conscious or your intellect is stepping on the side and observed while your subconscious come up. During that state, everything is start to working out and trying to communicate and understand until the mind and body click and synchronize.
Yeah, harmonize. Yeah.
And rewire the brain. That's when old negative energy is shift. Then and only then that you will be in a different energy field. Then your intellect is no longer questioning. Your intellect is letting go. So next time when that negative come again, you don't feel the intensity anymore because it's already shift. Your logic understand it, acknowledge it, but it doesn't control you. Right?
That's right. Yes, that's exactly right. Yes, you have the memory, but the emotional charge is gone or cleared. And then you have that memory as wisdom. You know, people often ask me, you know, they have a broken heart. They have a breakup with a lover or a spouse. Can you just hypnotize me to make me forget this person? I'm in so much emotional pain. But you really wouldn't want to let go of the lessons that you learned from that experience, because then you go into the next relationship and you're starting over again, you know? So you want to keep the wisdom, but just clear the emotion. And that's how we grow.
Yeah, the key things you mentioned here is not suppress your emotions or not beat yourself up with your unpleasant emotions, but work with it. And if you do it yourself, it requires a lot of willingness and commitment and work to overcome that. But 95% of subconscious mind controlling our life, our behavior.
Right.
So therefore, it takes a lot of willingness and commitment to really overturn your subconscious. If you have a challenge with your unpleasant emotions or negative emotions or emotions that you don't intellectually understand, that's most likely you have childhood trauma or trauma that stuck in your system, in your energetic field. So you don't want to suppress it. In order to really overcome it and thrive and move forward, you really have to work through that. And in order to work through that, and it doesn't have to mean that you relive the whole thing, but you have an expert along with you to guide you through a little bit at a time so it doesn't overwhelm your system, your whole body, your subconscious. Because your subconscious, there are many parts of you in your subconscious, correct?
Yes. Yeah, you have your inner child. You have your inner teenager, which a lot of people don't know about. But oh boy, that your inner teenager will get you in trouble. But she's really fun. So if you suppressed her along the way, you got to get her back for sure, in addition to your inner child. But yes, typically at the age in which we've experienced the trauma will be kind of arrested development for that person. You'll see them behave like a 2-year-old or a 10-year-old or a teenager because something happened at that time and they went into some kind of shock, and then it keeps people sometimes from growing. They just go into protective, survival mode. And one of the things that's really shocked me over and over again, just makes my heart go, is 25 years of doing this work. The people that apologize in my office for crying are the women in my office over and over again. Oh, I'm so sorry I'm crying. I shouldn't be crying right now. I'm so embarrassed I'm crying. And I'm like, how did we get to this place in our society where it's shameful to cry? We have to wear these masks of the masculine energy all day long. And every person, whether you're male or female, you have the masculine energy inside of you and you have the feminine energy. And the masculine energy is how we get stuff done, task oriented, make a list, make a plan, execute. And that's the masculine energy. And we all use that. If we're successful, we've got it, we use it, and we're probably even proud of it. Now, when you talk about the feminine energy, women have this push-pull. They'll inherently understand that they want to reclaim some of their feminine energy, but at the same time, they don't trust it. They don't believe in its value. They certainly don't oftentimes feel okay with crying. So But here's the real secret. If you want to gain more emotional power and energy in your life, that you're like, where can I get that from? It's hidden in your emotions, because your emotions are part of your intuitive guidance system. They will guide you to a story that you need to heal from the past. They will guide you to make a decision that's not based on facts. And sometimes we don't have all the information, and that's our gut, our intuition guiding us. And it's I've seen, if women are disconnected from their emotions, they're disconnected from intuition. So when you can make peace with your emotions and have a healthier relationship with them, your intuition will just skyrocket. And there are times and places when your intuition is vital because you don't have all the information you need to make a decision. And it's served me so much in my life since I've developed that healthy relationship with my emotions.
What does intuition means to you?
Intuition means to me to have a knowing about something where there's no data or information to guide me. So I've had some really significant experiences in my life. Just on Christmas Eve, my son was visiting me for dinner. He lives with his dad when he's home for Christmas from college. I said, call me or text me when you get home just to make sure you're home okay. And I just had this feeling. I just had this rush of something bad has happened. My stomach went into a cramp. My heart was racing. I was in fight or flight. I was anxious, very, very anxious. And I heard an ambulance go by. I knew that was my son. I drove right to the accident. And the voice says, oh my God, he could be dead. And this deeper feeling in my stomach was, no, he's okay. He's all right. And so, but I could feel that and recognize that because I'm really connected and aware of my emotions. And I've really learned to tell the difference. And people always say, well, how do you know if it's fear or if it's really intuition? Well, typically fear, unless you're in a life-threatening situation in that moment where fear grips you and says, don't go into that parking lot right now. It's dangerous. When you're thinking about people or situations, you will just have a knowing. Like when you're really connected with your intuition, you're connected with all of you. You're connected with a deeper knowing inside. But if you're suppressing emotion, you're also going to suppress intuition, because they both really abide in your body and in your subconscious mind.
Yeah, that's great. In order to really cultivate more positivity in life or more positive emotions, we have to really embrace our unpleasant or negative emotions and shift it into a different energy rather than push it away. Yes. Because if we push it away, we will never go over to our positive emotion. The same thing like for in our real life, in order to really have a clean house, right? We don't just shove all the dirt into one corner.
Exactly.
We have to really face it and clean it or clear out the clutter so we have more space to bring in things that we want to bring in. Even women, if you're in the same apartment and you have period, other women tend to have the same time as well. So we are communicating energetically.
Yes.
That our intellect doesn't know, because our energy is superpower in a way. Mm-hmm. So we cannot suppress emotions. We have to learn how to work with that and shift that so that you don't have to try as hard, because you're in different energy field. Mm-hmm. It's like you can't expect to be happy when you're not happy. You can't expect to be happy when your energy field is not happy.
Right, it's not going to just happen.
Yeah, you can't tell yourself intellectually to be happy when your energy field is not, because your energy field is 95%. So we have to shift our energy field so that we don't have to struggle with our emotion as much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And you know what? I love your feedback and your intelligent insight on this subject as well. And when you're talking, something else that came to mind that I think is important for people to know is that emotions suppress will manifest as disease in whatever way your body might have a predisposition or a weakness. So it could be breast cancer or an autoimmune disease. Deepak Chopra in Ageless Body, Timeless Mind says all disease begins in the mind. That was years and years ago. He wrote that book. Since then, other people like John Sarno has written a book called The Divided Mind. And I've worked with a Dr. Chong in Canada who has tracked back 21 cases of like stage 4 cancer to an emotional event, a trauma from childhood. I was working with a man who had prostate cancer, and his trauma was a molestation when he was a little boy at a boarding school. If you have any kind of health condition or disease, to look at the mind-body connection with that. And typically, again, there'll be some suppressed emotion involved in that scenario.
You have heard a lot about saying, whatever you focus, your energy flow.
Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's intellect talking, right? But it's true. We have to experience that. What I mean is that you know that if you focus on negative, then you feel negative. You feel bad. You feel frustrated. You feel depleted.
Mm-hmm.
And then you manifest that more and more. And that you become even more depleted, because
Mm-hmm.
you are focused on that energy. The more you shine light on that, the more that energy gets stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So over time, that's how depression, anxiety come to birth. When intensity increases so much, it becomes an anxious or depression taking over your life that you can't really control because energy controlling you. So how do you overcome that?
So for emotional fitness, there's a few things. One is I teach people a method to identify the emotions connected to a problem, idea, or story, a problem that they're having. So maybe they come in with a problem. So we're going to go underneath that, the idea, the story, to the emotions. And then we're going to find where they hold that in the body. And then we're going to track that back to the memories of where that problem emotion began, and then clear it. So that will take care of things that have happened recently or in the past. That will help them to understand that the emotion, there's, to identify what the stories are. The other thing is, if you can really develop a self-awareness of your own emotions, you'll learn what I call discernment. So you'll begin to tell the difference between your own emotions and someone else's. And this was a game changer for me. I didn't, as children, we don't have that discernment. If mom and dad are upset, we feel upset typically because we don't have the separation of the healthy detachment. I've helped many people have really huge shifts in their energy and their happiness by being able to know when they're feeling something, if it's theirs or if it's someone else's. And I think this is really important in relationships, because if you're an empath, which means you're highly empathetic, you feel other people's energy and emotions, and your spouse is in a bad mood, being sympathetic, feeling that emotion, or feeling bad and you don't even know why. I remember a few times where I first learned this was I'd come home from work, I was happy, and then all of a sudden an hour later I'd be in a bad mood, and then 10 o'clock that night, my husband at the time would say, "Oh gosh, I had this horrible fight with my boss today," and I'd be like, oh, what I'm feeling, this isn't even me, this is him, I'm feeling him, but I didn't know, because no one taught me that a process to be able to tell, is this me, is this someone else? And then as soon as I knew it was him, really we don't want to be fixers. And as an empath, your ultimate role is not to take on other people's problems and sadness and try to fix them so they feel happier. Your ultimate role as an empath, which is somebody who really feels everything in life, is to be the light.
So how would you suggest for people to manage that better?
Yeah, so if you're an empath and you know that someone else's energy really affects you in a negative way, but you have to work with them or live with them or be in contact with them, what you can do is start to visualize. The body really responds to imagery. So you can visualize like a bubble around you, like it's like your aura, and it's covered in, encased in like plexiglass or a mirror, and you can just mentally acknowledge, okay, that mood is happening over there. And then sometimes what you can do is have fun with it. Imagine like a little spiral black drain underneath their feet, and any negativity or bad mood they're giving off is just going to drain down into the earth, and you don't have to take it on. I realized that my best gift to anyone who's struggling is to not feel what they're feeling. It is to be the light. And what that means is to bring a higher vibration, a positivity, love. So you said, when women are living together, they'll synchronize with their periods. People do synchronize with each other, and the strongest vibration will win, will dominate. So instead of me, getting in a bad mood with my person because he's in a bad mood, it's better, I believe, and for my clients, to be light, to be love, to be hope, to be positivity, and to emanate that out. And this is a really important piece of it. In meditation years ago, I saw my guide showed me an image of putting down a ladder in the mud and crawling down and pulling people out. So every day I'm pulling people out of the mud. And it was exhausting. And so they showed me a ladder going up to the clouds, and I climb up the ladder, and I'm sitting up there and I'm happy, and I'll say, come on up here. It's beautiful up here. And up here is the mindset. It's a different belief. So what I really help people with is have different beliefs and ideas and stories that will help you to feel better. So some people will join me right away. Some people don't. In the office, I make recordings for people. So that will help them to up level their mindset, to support them in greater levels of peace and happiness. In my personal life, I don't try to fix anyone. I just give them love. I love them where they're at. If they're in a bad mood, I don't feel a need to fix it. Because on some level, when I need to fix you, I'm kind of saying you're not okay where you are. You're not lovable as you are. So really on a spiritual level, if you can just love someone where they're at, you're actually being more loving. Because I don't need to make you better or different. But it just means I need to hold my positivity instead of sinking into their negativity or fear or anxiety.
Okay, so remember, love where you at.
Yes.
What you need to be aware is that there's something that internally or externally trigger you to feel a certain way. The feeling to me is vibration, a sensation within your body. Emotions come when there's thought attached to that or belief attached to that, right? Mm-hmm. Because if there's internal sensations that make us feel anxious somehow, we don't know, we don't have a reason. That means we don't have a thought. Our intellect doesn't have any thought or reasons why we're feeling. We probably experienced that before our intellect developed. So it just resurfaces and we just feel that. That's the internal triggers. We're just aware of that, embrace that, and might take deep breath or meditate or whatever until your energies kind of harmonize. Because if you are distracted with substance or social media or whatever, then you are suppressing it. You're not letting it flow. Yeah. So that's one way, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Another way, trigger from the external, that trigger your feelings. But then there come emotions because there come thoughts that make you feel a certain way, like angry at that person or frustrating at yourself because you're doing something that it doesn't turn out the way you want it, right? Trying to understand what are the thoughts that makes you feel that way, right?
Yes.
And focus on change your thought in a way that help you move forward, right?
Yeah.
Again, where you focus, energy flow. What you focus is what you're going to get. So you focus on the thoughts that will move you forward to a different route to go to your destination. And then eventually that energy that you originally feel transform.
I really agree with what you're saying, that true power will come for you. You'll feel like you're really more in control of your life if you are aware of your thoughts, your narratives, what you're telling yourself about what's happening. And then if you're suffering, if you feel bad or sad or anxious, you can change the story. And when you change the story, you'll feel different. It's the story you're telling yourself about the situation that can empower you or disempower you. And then if you really wanted to go broad with it, It would be becoming aware of the situations in your life where you may be caught up in what I call a soul theme of the victim or feeling victimized by situations, by people. Certainly there are situations where people are victims. You can hold on to that perception for a week, a month, a year, or a lifetime.
Like I mentioned, where you focus, energy flow. So if you suppress emotions, then it becomes almost absolute.
Yes.
But it's there. You need to reignite it. Go deep into the subconscious mind and heal that to open up in a healthy way for you to feel and manage your emotions so that you become more alive and more connected with yourself and more whole, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Yes.
So that is the end of our conversation, Rebecca. Where can people find you?
Any of this is of interest to anyone watching and they would like to, they can get a free consultation with me and we can talk about how I might be able to help them with healthier emotional living. So I have two websites. I have charlestonhypnosiscenter.com and I have RebeccaTaylorShaw.com. And I work with people all over the world. So I do virtual sessions and virtual work. So you can come visit me in Charleston or we can work via Zoom.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you guys for coming and listening. And I'll see you in the next episode.